What in Harry Potter did you think it was magic but later realized it was just British?
People selling you stuff off a trolley on trains. Thought that was so cool and then went to the UK for real.
Love a long-distance train ride. For some reason the little snack trolley makes me lose all sense of financial worth. £5 for a can of Carling? Sure. £2 for mini cheddars? I'll take 2 packs please. Yes mate, and a mini cherry Bakewell tar.
I have literally no clue as to what any of those snacks might be.
A mini cherry Bakewell is a small tart with a sweet short crust pastry base, a frangipane filling above a layer of raspberry jam, topped with flood icing and half a glass cherry.
Okay, now we're making some progress. But what is frangipane?
Ground almond-based cake filling. Apologies for spelling it with an I at the end originally.
NGL I had to look up flood icing, thinned royal icing applied in a layer, and glass cherry, just a candied cherry, too. But Google is telling me frangipane is a flower, so now I'm lost.
A galleon divided up into 17 sickles and however many nuts isn't that much crazier than the pre-decimalization division of the GBP.
Time for one of my favorite parts of Good Omens. Know for young people and Americans, 1 shilling equals 5p? It helps to understand the antique finances of the Witchfinder army if you know the original British monetary system. 2 farthings equals 1 halfpenny. 2 halfpennies equals 1 penny. 3 pennies equals a threepenny bit. 2 threepences equals a sixpence. 2 sixpences equals 1 shilling, or bob. 2 bob equals a florin. 1 florin and 1 sixpence equals half a crown. 4 half crowns equals 10 bob note. 2 10 bob notes equals 1 pound, or 240 pennies. 1 pound and 1 shilling equals 1 guinea. The British resisted decimalized currency for a long time because they thought it was too complicated.
Too complicated? How the fuck did they manage to take over the world being that inefficient?
12 pennies in a shilling, 20 shillings in a pound, or 240 pennies in a pound. Everything else is just a nickname for a coin, like nickels and dimes.
You can't intercept our plans if you don't understand them.
When Hagrid mentions some people think Voldemort died and then says it's codswallop. Yeah, I definitely thought codswallop was some Wizarding World disease for the next decade or so.
I've been laughing about you thinking Voldemort died of codswallop for the past 6 minutes. I just keep thinking about Hagrid saying some say he died. Codswallop in my opinion, and you thinking that was some kind of British medical diagnosis. Thank you for this.
I'm afraid you have termination case of balderdash. Terminal poppycock.
Late stage hogswash.
Acute bollocks.
Prefects.
Houses at school. I first read Harry Potter when I was 11, read it several times since then, but only when I reached 29 years old did I find out, almost by accident, that houses were an actual thing. It blew my mind. Just to make sure, I do mean Slytherin and all. Not the thing where you live. I know those aren't real. Edit. I don't mean that houses where students live don't exist, it was a joke, albeit not great, smile. Edit 2. I'm not from the US, I have never lived there. I'm from Europe and I haven't heard a fellow European, except UK or someone in a British school abroad, telling me about houses yet.
We had houses in our school in Malaysia. But they were named after colors. Like Blue House, Rumah Biru, or Green House, Rumah Hijau. But houses were only used to create sports teams to create competition in sporting events in school.
Same thing in Australia.
Americans of Reddit, what's something normal in Europe that you think is completely absurd in America?
Once in Italy, I saw some phone sex ads on late-night broadcast TV. You know how ours have a woman in a bathtub saying ooh, call me? Theirs had 2 nude women going at it with a phone number at the bottom of the screen. I'm like, what do I need to call for exactly?
I remember seeing some ads for some in the US when I was a kid. But it's probably fallen out of favor right now. I just remember being confused because it was just like clips of people hanging out in bed or in a hot tub and vaguely say to call a number to have fun. And this was unlike a regular channel.
We had this in Canada too.
Pretty common, but after midnight on regular cable TV. I tried once. Was a bit disappointed. It is sex on the phone but with a stranger. It was weird.
Welcome to sexting a stranger before the internet. These were really common mid-OOS and prior, used to see ads for phone sex and porn on Comedy Central after 11 p.m. Still see phone hookup ads on there that late occasionally, at least as of last time I had cable, couple of years ago. Edit. Anyone else remember multiple Girls Gone Wild ads during every commercial break?
And I thought those medications ads were weird.
Side effects may include, in death,
lack of window screens. Last time I was in Italy, I accidentally left my hotel room window open. That night I spent an hour killing mosquitoes in the room and still got 20+ bites.
Yeah, I still haven't figured that one out in places that keep windows open near year-round. Stop the bugs.
This was in the US, but one time I was walking down the street on the north side of Chicago. It was late spring and someone had their second-story window open without a screen. I watched a pigeon land on the windowsill, poke its head in the window, and then fly inside. I said to myself, that person is gonna have a rough time.
There's this one apartment downtown where I live. Pigeons fly in but they don't come back out. They are either pets or being lured in to be eaten by someone.
Absurd is right. It's truly inexplicable. Especially in so much of Europe where there isn't air conditioning. If you're going to have windows open, then why not have a screen? And it's an easy aftermarket fix too, so there's really just no reason for them not to be there.
Thousands years old buildings around you. Here in America, if you mention a house was made in the 1800s, you get an astonished look.
Friends on mine in Switzerland live in a medieval house, just underneath a castle.
Sounds like peasant stuff, but okay. Ha ha ha, that reminds me of the Tumblr post that says if you say someone died in this house in America, that means a man was stabbed to death, but if you say it in Europe, it means that 3 generations have lived and died peacefully.
It doesn't exactly help that earlier colonists buried their dead in the basements during the winter in the northeast US, so there's a very real chance of unearthing bodies in old homes. I can't say if this happens in Europe, but any old home in the northeast US with an unfinished basement generally means don't do any renovating unless you want to have to call the cops and figure out what century the bones you just accidentally dug up are from. Those people likely died peacefully, but they also kinda stayed there a bit too long.
buildings whose foundations are in water. Hamburg, Venice, etc. I would be terrified.
Actually, the center of Amsterdam is completely built on wooden piles, because the wet and soggy soil cannot support buildings. The Dam Palace uses 13,681 wooden piles, for example. The piles have to be underwater to be conserved. A low water table spells trouble as the piles may start rotting.
That's relatively common in US coastal cities.
What profession was once respected but no longer is?
Working in retail, at one time that was considered a middle-class profession.
I had an uncle who sold appliances at Sears. Had a nice home, married, couple of kids. A neighbor worked at Elder Beerman. By the time the mid-'89s came, they were all but gone.
My grandfather worked at Sears. I think he fit suits. Shit, that doesn't sound like Sears. Whatever. It worked for him. He also worked in a lab.
Probably was. Sears used to do everything. Hell, at one time you could buy a house from Sears. Stands to reason that they probably made quality fitted suits too.
My 93-year-old grandfather still has a bicycle and an aluminum boat he bought from Sears.
Bank manager. Back in the day you were the man that people wanted to know to get their shit done. Now you're just a escalation point for customer service complaints.
I think it changes due to regulation and digitalization. Decisions were based on managers' assessments of the borrower. Communities were smaller and managers usually knew who was a good fit for the loan and who wasn't. Nowadays, things are based on numbers, ratings, scores, and the decisions get audited twice a year.
Being a milkman. I never understood why this was a joke until I was talking to my mom the other day and she mentioned they had a milkman when she was a kid. I always assumed you scheduled the delivery for when you were there to receive it and they left it at the door. Apparently these dudes would just straight up walk into your house and put it in the fridge. I can't even imagine that being normal.
Back in the day, some of them did. When I was a kid in the 1970s, ours placed it in a small box next to the back door, and whichever of my parents got up first on milkman day retrieved it.
We had that small tin box as well. Our milkman would knock on the door when he made his delivery.
Teachers.
My wife was a teacher. I work in a prison. We would often come home with the same stories.
As a teacher, I second that. I've already even made my mind toward going out of it.
2 school years of substitute teaching and I quit the master's program I was in to get the teaching cert in Ed. F that. Kids, parents, even other teachers, they were all out of control and treated each other like trash. I went home crying every single day. With the exception of first grade. First graders ruled. But I was going to teach high school social studies and English.
When absolutely anything on your curriculum can at any time become some political firestorm placing you right in the middle, no thanks.
Truckers. My dad became one because when he was a kid trucking was a cool job where you didn't have to be tied down. They were considered modern-day cowboys. Now you get watched on a camera 24/7, constantly accused of doing something wrong, and cut off multiple times a day by people who don't realize you can't stop on a dime.
My granddad was a trucker in the late 60s in Europe working for a company that had their own fleet for important deliveries. No sleeping in the cab, they slept in hotels and so on. Meals were taken in restaurants. No tracking of them. When he was sent to Norway, he was given 4x in cash, and they roughly knew that it would take him 8 to 10 days to do the trip.
Mate is a truck driver in the UK and the company won't even pay for him to sleep in a truck park at a service station. He either has to risk it in a lay-by or pay himself. Absolutely wild.
What is the unspoken rule of Reddit?
On controversial topics, check controversial comments. More like sort by controversial on every single post.
Some posts are the exact same answer 1000x over and you are stuck in the black hole of scrolling.
Don't tell your friends and family your username.
Bah. I use the same username pretty much everywhere on the net, and have done so for 21 years. So far, no one's yet been bored enough to search my username and discover what random, incomprehensible gibberish I've polluted cyberspace with.
Oh, I totally Google people's usernames. I never tell them, but I have time to kill, so I will absolutely use it to find out everything about internet strangers. Love the sunset videos BTW.
Don't share your life history on Reddit, because it always remembers everything you posted.
Delete it, they will know too much.
They already know too much. But I'd remove that link.
People will check your posts and comments, so do them accordingly.
Wow. Your sister is talented.
Thanks lol.
Don't edit and ruin a good comment with an entire speech and thanking everyone just because you got a large amount of upvotes or awards. Edit, thanks for the 4 upvotes. Edit 2, wow, so many upvotes. I would like to thank my dad and mom for having sex which resulted in me being born.